All right, hello everyone, it's silverkyle, and first of all, welcome to 2023. Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you had some happy holidays in the last little while. If you ended up getting some time off from work, I ended up getting the way that my schedule works is that the Monday and Tuesday after Christmas were paid holidays, which is always amazing. And then I took 3 vacation days afterwards to kind of clear up the rest of the week, and I've had the whole week off. It's been fantastic, but unfortunately, I do go back to work tomorrow, which by the time that you see this is most likely Monday, January 2nd. So if you see this, most likely I'm working and hating myself. But so pray for me. But I had a good time off. So let's dive in anyway to the last month of 2022, December, and see what I ended up picking up. There's a lot of books here. So let's dive into the omnibus first, which shouldn't come as any surprise as I did some overviews for this. First one being Venom, which is a Venomnibus. It doesn't say it on the side here, but in the inside, it does specifically state that. So this is by Donny Cates. And this, to me, is like, if you're interested in where Venom is now, and you don't necessarily want to read the whole King in Black crossovers, and same thing with Absolute Carnage, you could just pick this up, be completely caught up on what's happening with Venom, and also get the main stories of King in Black and Absolute Carnage. To me, this is the best bang for your buck in terms of getting caught up with Venom right now. And if you're a completionist, then you can definitely get the other ones, but it does double dip. Just be aware of that. Whereas this is the whole Venom story, the whole Absolute Carnage main story, the whole main King in Black story, and the only other ones is that you're getting the crossovers. So this is a really great buy, in my opinion. If you like Donny Cates, that is, and Venom. Next up is The Earth's Mightiest Heroes, The Avengers by Kurt Busiek and George Perez, Volume 1. Really happy that they did a reprint of this. Some people ended up getting it early. I was one of the lucky ones as well that ended up getting it a little bit early because I think the actual release date is January 3rd. So it's coming out this week. So I'm hoping that we get a volume 2 of this. Out of all the Avengers books that I wanted reprinted, this is by far, like, I probably wanted the Silver Age stuff reprinted, which we are getting later on in the fall of this year. It's really weird to say that now that we're talking about 2023, but we're supposed to be getting the reprints of volumes, I think at least 1 to 3 and maybe 4 as well. So that'll be fun. But this is kind of like the main ones that I've been looking forward to, is this run right here, which happens, I think, right after Heroes Reborn and Heroes Return. Another one that's not omnibus related, but it is comic book related, and they were having a sale at Indigo. So I was buying a bunch of books, and that's why you're going to see a lot of books here, also because I'm getting back into reading novels again. Like, I read a few here and there every year, but I really want to dive back into it. And we're going to actually be doing on the channel all the omnibus that I want to read in terms that are in my backlog, all the video games that I want to beat next year, or this year, sorry, and all the novels that I want to read this year that are in my backlog. And then we're going to also talk about all the things that are coming up that I'm looking forward to as well. But I used to always do backlog videos, and I want to get back into the groove of that. But I'm going to separate them between each genre here. So anyway, another one that is comic book related. I ended up getting this because they were having a 25% off sale plus like 10% if you're part of the rewards program from Indigo. So I ended up getting a lot of stuff, and I pre-ordered like all my omnibus through that. So I ended up getting 35%. I'm pretty happy with that. But this was banned in some schools in the States. And anytime they ban a book, I think it's the exact opposite of what they want, because it puts so much more, it puts it in the public eye back again. And then people get interested, and I'm like, oh, you banned a book? I want to read that. And that is Mouse. I have no idea about anything about this other than it has to do with mice. It's a comic book, and it deals with World War II. And it's like an introduction for kids without going too deep, so that they can kind of realize what was kind of going on with World War II. To me, that seems like something I'd be interested in reading. That's something that potentially I'll read it, and I'll say, you know what, I'm gonna show that to my kids. That's the way that I see it. They're trying to ban it to say no, kids can't read this. I'm gonna be the judge myself, and I'll determine if it's appropriate. I will definitely read it to my kids. That's the exact opposite of what they wanted to accomplish, is when they try to ban a book. Because I don't think any book should be banned unless that there's really like hate speech maybe, and the whole thing is just like super against certain like races or sex or something like that. But yeah, even then, depending on when it was written, it shouldn't be banned. It shouldn't be banned. There should be a warning potentially. That's fine, but you shouldn't ban books. Granted, this is in school, so it's a little bit different. I'm going to take a look at it, and I'll be the judge myself to see if it's appropriate for schools or not. I'm sure that depending on what level it was at, like if it's a high school, you could totally have this. I assume I can't see anything being horrible in there. If they're in high school, they've seen a lot worse. They're doing a lot worse too, um, than reading a book on World War II with mice. All right, let's get into some video games now. I ended up getting the TMNT Cowabunga collection. The video games are all from Christmas. This is like 13 classic games from like the NES and SNES. I'm really looking forward to the arcade games. It also has online multiplayer, so that I'm just sold right there. I love the TMNT games. I love TMNT alone, like period. The cartoon, the comic books, just everything about that world is freaking awesome. I love it. Another one that I got is Back 4 Blood, which isn't necessarily the greatest game. It's essentially like Left 4 Dead, just not as good, but made for modern consoles. That's essentially Back 4 Blood. I guess if you have an itch for Left 4 Dead, but you don't want to go play the old games, or you can't play the old games, this might scratch that itch. But it's nothing amazing. It's nothing horrible either. Harvestella on the Nintendo Switch. Now this is Square Enix's attempt at a farming simulator. I don't know why it has this. I mean, it's all wrapped up, so it doesn't matter. But I don't like, why is there an extra white piece of paper here? Anyway, Harvestella is, it's their attempt at a simulation, farm simulator, which I'm very happy with. I want more people to be making farm simulations, because then we get a different taste. They're all going to be a little bit different. Instead of getting the same Story of Seasons sequels, which I love, we're going to get a different feel for them, and it won't feel as well. For me anyway, I'll like the change of pace. And with this one, there's RPG elements. Really, actually, it's more like an RPG game with farming sim elements. I played the demo. I liked it. It wasn't amazing. It didn't look the greatest either. So I'm hoping that kind of has been fixed, and it looks a little bit better since the demo came out, or if they have a patch for it as well. But either way, I am looking forward to trying this out fully, and I'm hoping that it does well enough so that Square Enix makes sequels. And I feel like this was kind of their test. Another game that they released in 2022 that felt like a test was the Diofield Chronicle, which is kind of like an RTS for consoles. But I've heard that the story isn't the greatest, and I feel that this was kind of a test to kind of see, is there enough interest in here? Is there enough interest for us to put a little bit more money and effort into these games to see if, there's an audience there that would buy these. So I'm hoping that these did fairly well, and that they end up getting sequels where they really flesh out what they wanted originally. All right, now we've got a ton of books here. And a lot of these books are the first books in series that I want to continue reading. So I'll go more into detail about like all of this when I have those separate videos for what I want to be reading. But one of them is definitely Star Wars. I just recently finished Shadow of the Empire, which was my first Star Wars novel ever. And the next up is the Bounty Hunter trilogy. And then I'm potentially going to read the X-Wing, the first, I think, 6 books, because I want to read it all in chronological order in the timeline for the Legends series, which to me will be the real canon. They say it's not canon. I'm going to say this is the real canon, because I don't really like what they did with, especially episodes 8 and 9 of Star Wars. 7, I will stay, from what I remember, I did enjoy it, but 8 and 9 are just absolutely horrible. So most of the Star Wars novels I have like Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia, Chewie, and all that. But there's a few stories that I heard good things about, like the Bounty Hunter trilogy and the X-Wing. I think there's like 10 books in this series, but I think 6 of them happen between episodes 5 and 6, I think. So I have it online that I'm just going to follow this chronological order, and this is one of them. A Man Called Ovi by Frederick Bachman. Bachman I've heard of a few times before, but I've never read any of his novels. And he actually has this movie is coming out, but I think it's A Man Called Otto, played by Tom Hanks. So that makes me excited for the movie. But movies can be hit or miss when they adapt a book, and the book is generally always better. So I don't want my mind to be tainted by watching the movie and then reading the book. I want to read the book first, then I'll look at the movie afterwards. There's a few times like I'll watch a movie first and then go back to the book, and still be able to appreciate and enjoy the book usually more, as long as it's better. But this is definitely one of those situations where I want to read the book first before I dive into the movie. Another one I picked up is called Stranger in the Lake. it was just a thriller novel that anytime they have lake in the title, when there's a cottage, usually a cottage setting, I'm into that because I love, like, the thing that I love to do at my cottage the most is just going out there and read. You go on a hammock and you outlook the lake and you read for hours upon hours. That's one of the few places that I can go and read for like 10 to 12 hours a day. It's not very often that I can do that anymore as an adult, but that's definitely one of them. So that's I'm sold on that. One of the series that seems to be potentially getting a sequel this year, although most, from what I've heard, the chances are very slim because who knows if this person's ever going to even release the third book, and that is in The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Apparently, so this is the first book, and he had really good, a lot of success with the first and second novel. I have heard that it's not necessarily for everyone. There are some people that really like it, and there's other people that just can't connect with the main character. So I kind of want to give this a shot to see if it's something that I would potentially like and go from there. And if there's a chance that the third book is coming out this year, I don't think that there is. So it might be a while before I even read this, but just to have it, so I'm prepared for when that, if the third book ever gets released. Another series that is starting. So a lot of these books are going to be fantasy or sci-fi for the most part, but one of them is called the Atlas 6, some kind of academia book that I think was released in either 2021 or 2022, but there's a sequel as well that came out last year. That much I know. I just don't know when this one came out. I don't know if this is 2021 or 2022, but either way, the third one, by the looks of it, is going to be coming out in this year, so that's why I want to read this. Red Rising, which I have started, is a sci-fi novel. They're on Mars. I'm only a few chapters in, so I'm not really digging it too much. And basically, the sixth one I think is coming out in June. So I think if I read one book per month, I'll be caught up for the entire series. It's two trilogies. It's the first trilogy starting with Red Rising, and then there's a sequel trilogy afterwards, and then the third one is coming out in June of this year, I believe. So I do want to read this. Mike from Mike's Book Reviews is actually doing a reread of the entire series, so I'm going to try to keep up with that because I've heard good things about it, and it's something that I want to dive into. But it's just I'm not hooked there yet. But it's only the first few chapters. One book that I did start just today, actually, and I'm 75 pages or so in. That the first chapter I wasn't really turned on by. I was like, oh, I'm not going to like this book either. But then I started diving a little bit more into it, and I got I really like this. So this is, I don't know, like Harry Potter for adults. Maybe it's not at all like Harry Potter. It's just there's magic in the world. It doesn't seem like everybody knows about it, but some people do. And I could be wrong on that too. I could be entirely wrong on that, but it sounds like there's not everybody knows about this, and there's some magic in the world, and there's also souls don't necessarily always go into the afterlife. Some people stay behind, and they're called greys, and some very minority amount of people, not even just all the people that can control magic or use magic, but there's a few of them that can actually see the greys, and that's what this book is about. It's this character called Alex who can see these greys, and the lore and world building so far is really interesting to me. So I'm really starting to dig the book for that aspect. And the sequel to this comes out on January 10th, so I have to finish it before it comes out because I already have it on pre-order. So I'm going to finish it within by the end of the week, hopefully. This has nothing to do with any of the other books that I'm talking about. But I have guilty pleasures every once in a while, and that is that I'm into cryptozoology, which is just these gigantic monsters, Loch Ness, Bigfoot, Meg, for example, Jurassic Park, maybe. Jurassic Park, the novel, is actually really good, but I've read Meg, and it's not the greatest book, but I still enjoyed it, by Steve Alton. The movie was horrible, but the book was a guilty pleasure. And so I saw this, and I was like, why not? It's on sale. Let's get it. And that is Sea Hunters. I can't even pronounce that. And then I saw how thin the book is when I got it. Just to give you reference point. Hardcover versus that. It is so small. It is 130 pages, and look at the font. This is like a novella, has to be. I don't know if it's for young adults. I'm really scared of reading this. Granted, it's only 130 pages, so I should be able to bust through it relatively fast, especially with a font that size. Like 2 hours, maybe I'll be done this book. If this novella, if I decide to read it, or the whole thing, and who knows, maybe it's really good. And it seems as though this author has a bunch of books like this, or not novellas. So it's entirely possible that maybe it scratches that itch of like it's not necessarily good, but it's entertaining and it's a guilty pleasure. And when you're reading a bunch of other big novels, it could be something that you read in the middle. So maybe. Next up is The Justice of Kings, which is the first novel from Richard Swan that came out last year. And I've heard that this author, for a first time author, got like 100, like six figures, of six figure deal, which is very rare. So there's got to be something to this book, and it's a fantasy novel. I'm looking forward to it. The sequel for this one comes out in February, so I'll be reading like the Ninth House in the next few days. I've got a mystery novel that I think comes out on January 5th that I'm getting. Then the sequel to Ninth House. I'm gonna be reading a Star Wars bounty hunter. I'm talking too much a little bit about like everything, all my plans here, but that's essentially what we're going to be getting into in one of the videos. And I'm going to have to read this one in January as well. I have a lot of plans to read a lot of books in January, probably a little bit too much at this point in time, but we're going to see how we get there. Another book that I did an overview for and that I'm going to be reading in, well, not this, but the series, I'm going to be reading The Two Towers and The Return of the King. Probably not in January, but maybe February at this point in time because I've got so much other stuff to read. But that is The Fall of Numenor, which is a new novel from Tolkien, but it's essentially just all his collections. I had already talked about this, but if you have all of the other novels that were released from Tolkien, then this is literally just double dip. Other than maybe the editor notes, that would be the only new stuff. But it's all essentially the Second Age stuff from Tolkien in one book. So really pretty, and it'll look nice on the shelf, especially if you have this collection already. But that's maybe as a completionist or a historian on Middle Earth, kind of nice to have everything from the Second Age of Lord of the Rings, of Middle Earth, all the Second Age stuff. Last but not least, I read Carrie, my first Stephen King novel, last month, and I really liked it. And then I said, okay, I like that enough that I want to read the next few books from Stephen King, but I don't want to just buy, a paperback or, I want to get the original first printing hardcover of some of his books. So I paid quite a bit for this, but I have Salem's Lot from like, what is it, 76 or something like that. Like, this is an old book. And I'm so excited. I cannot wait to dive into this. I kind of want to read like maybe one Stephen King novel a month. The only thing is that I kind of want to get all first printings, and that's going to be relatively expensive. So we're gonna see. I mean, this book is in immaculate condition. I like that they put like we got some coloring going on there. I like that they add the plastic around it so it stays in better condition. You can kind of see it reflecting there. But yeah, this like. It looks brand new, and when was this? I know it's in the 70s. I think it's mid 70s. 75. I think 74 might have been Carrie. So this is going to be one of the book. January is so locked up, so I don't know if I'm going to start it in January. If I don't start it in January, I'll start it in February, and then after that it's The Shining. Then I think that it's Rage. And then probably The Stand. So those are like Salem's Lot I've always heard of. The Shining, I loved the movie with Jack Nicholson. The Stand, I've heard nothing but good things for. So I'm really looking forward to diving into some of these Stephen King novels and seeing if I potentially read his entire, bibliography. Like, it's entirely possible that I read the entire thing. It'll take me quite a while because I think he's got like 65 novels or something like that. But we've got quite a bit here. Probably a little bit more than I can chew. Yeah, this is going to be a lot. But stay tuned, because we're going to go into everything that I want to be reading in terms of novels and omnibus that are in my backlog, and all the video games that I want to play in 2023. And then we're going to talk about all the future things that are coming out as well. So that we got a lot of stuff coming up. So long video. what other way to start the new year? Thank you all for watching. You have been bearded in.
Beardage.